So believe it or not, this is going to be a video that is going to be very, very personal to me. And the reason for that is because the Apple Watch Series 4 is probably the most used product that I use as of this point. And it's probably been one of the most used products I've used for the last few years. This has been my Apple Watch I've been using probably for the last 2 years, maybe 3 years. And so even in between that, I've switched MacBooks, I've switched iPads, I've switched iPhones, I've switched a lot of products, but my Apple Watch has pretty much stayed consistent, which is honestly very, very, surprising. So out of all the products that I personally use, this is probably the one that I've used probably for the longest time, at least for the last few years. So let's go and see how this Apple Watch holds up in 2023. Now, if you want to pick up some watches I would recommend this year, links will be down in the description. You can get it from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the Apple Watch Series 4, you do have to remember that this watch, in my opinion, was actually one of the most impactful Apple Watches Apple made. And I do think in this day and age, body-wise, it still holds up very, very well, even against like the Apple Watch Series 8, Apple Watch SE2, which kind of looks the same thing as this. There's a lot of overlap for sure. Now on the front, you have 2 different sizes that you can buy with this Apple Watch. It's pretty much been the same type of size format for the last, since the first Apple Watch. We do now have the Apple Watch Ultra, which does kind of change things a little bit. But with the Apple Watch Series 4, we do actually have that 40mm size or that 44mm size. So back when this Apple Watch came out, that was a pretty big difference. And the reason for that was because this was the first time in the complete Apple Watch lineup where we actually got a size increase coming from the previous Apple Watch. So that was something that was honestly very surprising. When you actually did own something like an Apple Watch Series 4, you were getting an Apple Watch that kind of stood the test of time for many, many generations, probably up until the Apple Watch Series 7, when they officially changed the size again, but even then it really wasn't like a crazy big difference. I would say going from the Apple Watch Series 3 to the 4 design was probably bigger than going from like the Apple Watch Series 4 to the Series 7 design. Although the internals changed like crazy, the exterior slightly changed a little bit. So that's why I still think my Apple Watch Series 4 is still holding up very well, and there's a lot more reasons for that as well. Now on the side of the Apple Watch, we have our 2 different buttons. So we have our digital crown, which we can go ahead and navigate through the whole entire system. You can click into it to access all the apps and all those other things. You also have that button below it, which is just like a power button. It's, multitasking button if you want to get into your apps in the background. So you can always click that button to access a little bit more information, which is cool. On the back, you also have that little charging puck. So this is one thing I also do like about, Apple Watches a lot. All of the chargers work exactly the same on all the watches. So if you bought the first Apple Watch and if you bought the, latest Apple Watch Ultra, they all use the same exact chargers, which is so nice. So you can mix and match. You don't really have to mix and match, but you can change a charger from one to the other. You don't necessarily have to buy an Apple Watch charger if you don't want to. There's charging pads out there that support Apple Watches too. So it's a really cool thing. I actually like it a lot, and I do think this is another really cool, advantage of buying an Apple Watch, maybe over some other smartwatches. So that kind of covers it up on the body side. Now another thing are the bands. So like I said with a watch, charger, you can not mix and match, but you can use any watch charger for it from the Apple series. The thing with the bands though is that the bands also are interchangeable between all of the same sized watches, between all of them. So if you bought the bigger sized Apple Watches between any of the models, well, all of those bands will work on that specific model. The same exact thing for the smaller bands. And that is something that is extremely awesome. In my opinion, again, having that type of capability is so cool. And I think that in and of itself is probably one of the main reasons why, again, having an Apple Watch kind of puts yourself in a future-proof situation because all the watches share all the same bands. And that's another reason why I like this Apple Watch a lot, is because all the bands still work on this thing and they're still compatible. So in terms of the exterior and the outside, that kind of covers it up there. Now, one of the sadder aspects of this watch, which is probably going to contemplate me actually upgrading from this watch sooner than later, is because of its updates. So we really don't know how much longer this watch is going to last. The previous watch right before this actually did end up lasting for quite a bit of time. That watch, the Apple Watch Series 3, lasted for a longer period of time than the Apple Watch Series 2, which was expected, but it was like a noticeable amount of time. Like, it was actually pretty insane. So that was actually something that was very surprising to me at that moment. But now we are on this, spot where the Apple Watch Series 4 is the oldest supported watch right now on watchOS. So we don't really know if that's necessarily meaning that the Apple Watch Series 4 is going to be discontinued this year, meaning is watchOS, the next version, going to be supported on this device. We really don't know. If I had to guess, I'm probably going to go down the assumption that this watch is probably no longer going to be supported on watchOS this year. It may still get a security update here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty much probably going to be gone, which is going to be very sad, but that's just kind of the situation we're in. I hope it lasts longer, but this is probably going to be the reason why I'm probably going to upgrade for my watch this year. Once the Apple Watch Series 9 comes out and this watch is officially kind of discontinued with watchOS, maybe I'll go for like a used Apple Watch Series 8, in the used market. Maybe something along those lines. We'll have to kind of wait and see, but that's kind of how I plan on upgrading probably the next few months, maybe end of this year. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Now, in terms of some core features that this watch actually has though, you still have the cellular and standard GPS models. You still have a water resistant watch, which is awesome. You have an electrical heart sensor and an optical heart sensor, which is cool. You have a speaker on this watch, which some of you may have even forgotten. You have your microphone, you can use Apple Pay. You have 16 gigabytes of storage built in, and overall the chipset inside is still actually pretty good. It has that S4 chip inside with that W3 chip inside too. And overall, what that kind of has given me the last few years is a very stable watch that gets the job done for me. If I had to go and use this watch on an everyday basis, well, I can easily do it, and I have been doing it for the last few years. Anytime I've gotten a text or a message or a phone call, my watch has always been dependable. It's never frozen on me, has never given me any issues or anything even remotely close. I, have scratched this, I have basically bashed this thing up against walls. I've dropped this thing many times. I've sunk it in water. I've dropped it in water many times. And nothing has ever happened with this watch. I probably bought this thing, I think I did buy this thing used like 3 years ago, and it is still holding up very, very well. So that is just kind of like a testament to these Apple Watches and how well they hold up over time. So that's one of the big things to keep in mind. Now, like I mentioned, the main things I do with my watches are normally just checking the time, but also checking notifications. I respond to notifications sometimes. I will occasionally check my calendar on my watch as well. But the big thing I use it with is basically just, monitoring my health, specifically for tracking steps and workouts and all that stuff. And that is probably the main reason I would never move away from an Apple Watch or any smartwatch. Just being able to quickly check my workout or checking how long I've been working out, how many miles I ran, those things are awesome and I love that so much. So that is another big advantage where I love this specific watch for sure. So in terms of that, and to kind of sum up the video, I think the Apple Watch Series 4 is still a very good watch without a doubt. I think it's here to stay. I think it's probably one of the most important watches I've used. I've owned all the Apple Watches for the most part, and this is the one that's been pretty much the best value per dollar in my opinion. But now that this one's getting kind of side graded in a way with it being discontinued, I am kind of up in the air about the next watch I'm going to upgrade to. I don't want to just go for the Series 5 because it's kind of, the next in line to be discontinued. I would go for the Series 6, but the Series 7 has a bigger screen, so I may go for that. But I think the Series 4 is still worth it for now, but it might not be worth it later on this year. So that pretty much covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.